Alright folks, this video is for a little project I'm working on here in my parents' camper. They opted to go with new light fixtures. You can see I've removed the covers off of them, and they wanted to go with the LED because these bulb type fixtures have been nothing but problems, and just constantly blowing bulbs and just always a pain in the rear. So I installed in my camper some of these light fixtures, and I recommended them to them also. Get them off of Amazon. Here's the label here: Gold Stars RV and Marine double dome light fixture. And they're great little light fixtures, fairly inexpensive. The problem is they're not the same size. So if you look at the shape of this, it's more of a square fixture compared to this rounder fixture. And when you have these soft roofs in these campers, you get indentations when you pull these down, the old ones. Well, when you put the new ones up, they're a little bit narrower, and you end up with these indentations in the roof, and it just looks horrible. Also, the outer screw holes will just be on the edge of the new outer thing, and they'll show. So I decided that I was going to fix that problem. I'm going to do a little modifying of the parts out of this light fixture into the parts of this light fixture so we can reuse these bases and the lenses that come with them. So I'll show you how I got this done. Alright, so I'm going to show you what you need to do this mod for these lights. The tools and stuff that's required. Alright, so I went to the hardware store and I bought a bunch of these little nylon spacers. You can see them there. They're just little nylon spacers. I think they're 3/16 thick with a little hole in the center. Get a bunch of those. I think I'm doing 7 lights, so I needed 14 in total. This is not all of them. And then the screw that's in the fixture is not long enough to go through this and do the mounting we need. So I ended up purchasing some little 6x1.5 or 6x1/2 inch little sheet metal screws, which work fine with the plastic. Probably bought too many, but I got an extra box of those. I got some Gorilla Gel super glue. I opted for the gel instead of the liquid because you know, it holds in shape a little better. I'll show you that when the time comes. Got a regular old Phillips head screwdriver, a small flat, and a Dremel tool with a little drill bit looking bit in it for cutting into the plastic. Alright, so we'll go ahead and I'll show you how I go about doing this. It's very simple. First of all, you take your original light fixture with the bulbs that came out of the camper that you want to reuse the base and the switches out of this light fixture. So the first thing to do is to break this light fixture down. So pull the bulbs out, just pop out and get them out the way. Then I like to pop these out next. So you don't have to be real gentle with these. You're not reusing these metals pieces, so if any of these clips break while you're prying these out, it's not a big deal. Just get on there with your little screwdriver, pop them out of there, and discard them. We're not reusing them. They won't work. They won't do you any good with these LED boards that we're going to reuse. All right, after that's done, you see they just pop out of there. We have to remove the old bulb socket fixtures. All right. So the way to do that is really easy. There's a tab right here behind the light. If you can see in there that tab right there. Take your screwdriver, push that tab down. It's okay if you break it, because we're not reusing it. And then slide the metal bracket out, and it pops right out. Easy as pie. Okay, we'll do the other one. Push down on the tab and slide it out. Okay. Now, we need to get rid of these wires. The only bit of these wires we're going to reuse, I think, is the black ones. I don't know. Let's see. Let me just unhook them. So they're on spade connectors, so you just unplug them. Get them all out the way. They just pull off with a little effort. And pull your sockets out. Hang on to those. You may be able to reuse them for another project. Okay. Now, that breaks down the bulb base and gets it how we need it. So now we'll move on to gutting the LED base and removing the parts out of it that we need to put into our other base. So we'll do that now. Get this open. Remove the lenses by sliding them out. Unfortunately, we're not going to be reusing these, so if you crack one, it's okay. Alright, so this is what we're dealing with. Inside these lights, you have a circuit board that's got a bunch of LEDs on it there. Okay, it's real simple. It runs on 12 volts. It's just a ground wire and a hot wire coming in 12 volts. You know, it's really, really basic. So what we want to do is remove these boards and insert them, install them into this base. Okay, so let's do that. First thing is, the way these are in here is you have screws. You have a screw here on this side of the board, and if you look on the back right here, there's also a screw on the other side that holds it in. So we're going to remove those two screws. Just regular old Phillips, nothing fancy. Okay, now you'll see that it's trying to come out, right? The only thing that's holding it is the slip-on power connector for the board. So I'm just going to grab it, I'm going to pop it off and remove the board. I'm going to set it aside. And I'm going to do the same side, the other side the same way. Okay. So I'm going to remove this one also. So anyway, grab the fixture or the plug and just slide the board out. All right. Now, this is a kind of a part that we want to try to save this wiring, okay? Because it's already spliced and everything's nice and pretty. It's got a little heat shrink on it. We don't want to have to redo all this, okay? So we're going to reuse this wiring, and the way we're going to do that is remove all this harness with these fixtures all together. So we're going to push these through the hole. Get everything loose on the back side, and we're just going to remove all these wires from the switches, just like the other one. Just gently kind of wiggle them and they'll pop off. Alright, there we go. So this is what you got left over. Just two switches and the other base that we're getting rid of. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to hang on to this harness because we're going to need it in a minute. Alright, now we'll go back to this, and what we need to do is find a way for this to be mounted here. Alright, now these things, they don't put out any real heat. They don't get real hot. You don't have to worry about melting anything or anything like that. So the way you mount them is not that crucial. I mean, you could literally almost just glue them down in here, but we're going to go a little further with the simple little stuff we got and try to do it right. Alright, so if you put the plug back on the board, you'll see, put it the right way, I don't think it really matters, but let's see. Yeah, it's labeled. Alright, if you see right on the board, it's real small, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a positive and a negative. Well, obviously your red in your plug goes to the positive side, which is the top one. So don't be afraid if you forget the way it goes. It goes like that. So you almost put it on backwards. Alright, so what we want to do is get this tab right here to go into that slot. Okay, and then on the other end, we're going to take one of our nylon washers, put it under that screw hole. Okay, it acts as a spacer, and then we're going to take one of our screws and put into this hole and drive down into the plastic. All right, but first we've got to do something here because this hole's not big enough, and as you insert this tab and you push down, it kind of starts prying on everything. So what I opted to do was take the old junky Dremel tool that barely works and carve this hole out just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger on this side right here. So that's what I'm going to do now, if I can get this thing to work. Right. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, so that's not perfect, right? And it's not pretty, but it doesn't have to be. You don't want to make it too big, but it doesn't have to be anywhere near perfect. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is put the board down. Well, no, I need to put this back on, I'm sorry. Pay attention to your polarity. This is going to go in here, okay, and tab up like that. That allows the board to lay flat. Okay, from there, you can insert your spacer and put your screw in. Alright, the other thing we got to do though is you got to make your hole big enough so you can feed this one in first, because you got to have your harness be intact so it can go to the other side. So I may have to actually make this a little bit bigger. Let me do that now. I'm going to go ahead and carve both of them out. Alright, so basically all we did was make these holes big like they are in this one. Big enough for those connectors to slip through. Like I said, this does not have to be anywhere near perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and install my harness like it was in the other one. I'm going to push it through here, and then that allows me to go ahead and make my connection to my board and mount my board. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so pay attention to your power markings and your polarity there, and go ahead and insert your board back into the thing. Get your wires kind of on each side of the tab, lay it in there, kind of mock it up. Then insert your washer, and we'll get a screw. This one's already open. Get just a little sheet metal screw, or any kind of little screw you want to use. These work out kind of nice because they're just right. Go ahead and put that in there. Take your screwdriver and just drive that down right in and through the plastic. Not gonna hurt anything. Takes a little force, but the screws are sharp, so they go kind of right on through the plastic with a little force. Now don't over tighten them. As long as it's fully seated, which it is, that's fine. Alright, so now on the other side of this, you want to find a way to mount this. We don't have a place to anything for this screw to go into. So what I opted to do at that point was just use the super glue. This stuff dries in 10 seconds. Use the gel and just dab some around right in here. And there you go. That side is complete. Now we'll do the same thing with the other side. I already have my other board. So I'm going to pay attention to my polarity. Red goes to positive, black to negative. Get my wires kind of situated. Insert them in. Make sure they don't get pinched. And I want to get my washer. Slide it under there. And another screw. And I'm just going to screw it down the same way. Drive the screw into the plastic. Takes a little force, but it'll go on. Once it bites, it'll go on down. Alright, so if you look, the screw just barely protrudes through the back, that 1/2 inch screw. So you don't have to worry about it gouging into your soft roof, you know. Alright, I'm going to add a little super glue to this side, and then we'll do our wiring. Try to get my glue to come out. There we go. Ain't got to be pretty. Just put some in there. You'll never see it again. These LEDs last a really long time. Alright, so now, basically what we got is a real simple wiring scheme here. The power's got to come in and it's got to come out, right? So your ground's taken care of already. It comes down, it wires off and goes to each board. But you have to deal with your positives. Each positive leg has to run through your switch so you can turn it on and off, okay? So on these switches, there's already spade connectors, just like on the other switches. Now the only difference is that these spades on this particular setup are a little too big, and they slide on and off real loosely, and they won't grab. So there's an easy way to fix that. Let me grab my little pliers here. Alright, so all you got to do to fix that problem is just gently squeeze these. I'm talking about ever so gently, give them a little squeeze. And close the little sliders up just a little bit. Doesn't take much. And then insert. It doesn't matter really which tab you use because power is just going through this switch. And as you turn it on and off, you're just interrupting that flow. Okay? So I'm going to orient them the same. Alright, see now they're nice and tight. That's never going to come off of there. We'll take this one and do the same thing. Switch is trying to pop out. I might have squeezed a little too much, but once you get it on there, you don't have to worry about it coming off. Alright. And then I'm going to take the other part of the harness. Okay, this is what feeds the power into each switch from your wiring. And I'm going to squeeze those same way, ever so slightly. Just a gentle, gentle little squeeze. And you can try it a few times. And if you over squeeze them, you can probably take a knife or something, kind of bend the tabs back open. Insert those onto the switches on the other open tabs. Don't let this wiring intimidate you. It's very simple. If you have to, just take a step back and you can draw it out on a piece of paper or something. This is basically like a light switch. It's just interrupting the flow on the positive side to these boards. Alright, so that pretty much does our wiring. It's all ready to go. You got your positive and negative. And then, the only other thing is you have to reuse your light covers. Now in this camper, the lenses are frosted. You got a little clear spot in the middle. Kind of similar to what you had on the LED lights. The only difference that I can really see is this looks almost like a magnifying feature here. It maybe focuses a little of the light straight down. But these won't fit on here obviously, so we got to go back with the originals. Now you may be able to find these at a camper supply place or online. I haven't looked, and get them clear. I don't know. That's something to look into if that bothers you. So you just pop these on, just like you would. Alright, and there you have it. You have your light fixture using your original base and with the LED boards inside, and they'll mount in all the original screw holes in the camper. Alright, so basically now I'm going to go back and reinstall the light to where it was at. You can see the indentions like I showed you earlier in the video. So first thing you always want to do is identify your positive and negative wire coming in your camper. These can be all different colors. This is a complete different color wire scheme that I ran into with one of the other lights in the back of the camper. So what I like to do is use a meter. A test light will kind of work too if you know how to do it to tell polarity, but this is just a little cheap meter from the auto parts store. You can use a little cheap Harbor Freight meter with a needle. Put it on your DC setting. If you don't know how to use one of these meters, go online. Really simple, but it will tell you the polarity of these wires. Okay, what's positive and negative. So I double checked that on the 12-volt setting, and I figured out that in this camper, on this particular circuit, the wire has an orange stripe. That's my hot, or my positive, and the solid white is ground. I think by proxy in most campers, this kind of the standard is 12-volt. Negative is usually white, but don't trust that. Always check. Alright, so I use the regular little wire nuts that came with the LED lights. Each package has got one in it. And I'm going to go ahead and pop these lenses back off so I can get my screws back in. I'm going to shove my wires back up into the roof. There's usually plenty of room because there's actually space up there. Make sure your wires go up in there and don't get pinched. Put your light right back into the indentions they were in. And I got my screws here. These people that put these lights in must not want them to come down because they put 8 screws in each light, which I think is just crazy, but we got them, so I'm going to put them back. Now usually when you're putting these screws in, you got to be really careful because what they're screwed into is usually very thin. And I think that's probably why they use so many screws. So when you're putting them in, you can do it by hand if you're not sure about a power tool like this little impact, but just run them in and just snug them up. Okay, they're not likely to back out on you. Now, if you're having to start with new screws, you know, just put however many in you think you need for whatever you're screwing it to. Get all 8 of these in. Nothing to it. You can use a drill. This is a little DeWalt impact that I keep around. It's a very handy tool. Great for a little bit of everything. Almost done here. One more screw, and we'll try it out. All right. Pop our lenses back on and see how she looks. This is the first time for me too here, so let's see how it shines with these lenses. Alright, here we go. I think it looks pretty good. It's bright. You still got control here, and you've also got control on the switch. In this particular bathroom, both of these lights will be controlled by this switch. So I think it's pretty good. It puts out a wider light. That's one thing you have to deal with the LEDs. But for those of you that are converting to LED, most of you are doing it for solar or just the low energy consumption. If you're dry camping like we do a lot, these lights, you can't beat them. You can leave them on all night. They won't run your battery down. It's very efficient light. So that's pretty much it. You can see, you know, you don't have to deal with all the other ugly stuff. Very easy modification, and something that anybody shouldn't be afraid to do.